It's a long journey of development, adaptation, testing, failing, technology change.
Community is the new mode and that's the new infrastructure.
But अगर हर कोई सोचेगा यार ये तो बहुत मुश्किल है, नहीं करेंगे, तो फिर ऐसे तो दुनिया नहीं चलेगी. रियलाइज नहीं यार, फाउंडर नहीं बनेंगे यार, मतलब इट्स टू मच.
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
समटाइम्स फाउंडर्स ये भूल जाते हैं कि अरे अकाउंटिंग भी तो करनी है.
टेक्नोलॉजी को लैब में टेस्ट करना और उसके बाद कस्टमर के हाथ में टेस्ट करना इज अ वेरी डिफरेंट जर्नी.
Those things eventually delay everything. Technology is not a problem. Adoption is a problem.
Welcome to another episode of the FuF Night by Startup Movers, Founders Unfiltered. We've reached our 11th episode. We've spoken to founders, serial founders, venture capitalists, and ecosystem and leaders. But today we are discussing a topic which I am trying to understand. Even though being in the ecosystem for the last 15 years, this topic is something which always requires deep dive at high end as well. We're talking about deep tech and AI in not just Indian startup ecosystem, but how is it shaping the world? And today we have two guests who are living it in day out. Dr. Sunil Shekhawat, who is co-founder at Sanchi, which is a deep tech accelerator, and Mr. Govind, Kedia, who's founder at Uptake Innovation and is doing everything around IP in the deep tech landscape. So what we have been doing so far, जब भी हम क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं, इंट्रोडक्शन भी है. The question that I'll ask you is about, please tell about yourself. But 99.9% of the time जब हम किसी employment seeking individual से पूछते हैं जो resume लेके आता है, तो 99.9% वही पढ़ता है जो रिज्यूमे पे लिखा होता है. जबकि मेरा स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन ये होता है, प्लीज टेल मी मोर अबाउट योरसेल्फ अपार्ट फ्रॉम व्हाट आई सी. तो इट्स बीन 10 year journey with Govind and it's been 2-3 years knowing deep tech ecosystem with Sunil sir. So my question to both of you, and starting with seniority with Sunil sir, same question sir. So same question Sunil. Who's Sunil Shekhawat? Let us know about you first.
Somebody who comes with a very odd background in this ecosystem, nobody can think of.
Yeah.
Especially the doctor in my name, a lot of people relates it to somebody who's coming from a deep research, writing, core research work, doing technologies and all that. I'm not that. I'm somebody who is totally out of scope for deep tech. So I'm a dental surgeon turned entrepreneur turned enabler turned I don't know what all. But very much passionate about entrepreneurship. That's where I started my career post my being a doctor. And that really got stretched to a level that I got myself so deep into startups and then the emerging trends. And of course, when you're talking about emerging trends, I don't think there is anything more emerging than deep tech in this country. And I think I was privileged to be part of an organization which gave me the right opportunity to be there and understand what's coming next in 2017-18. That's when my journey of deep tech started. Got the privilege of driving one of the most reputed and earliest program in the country to support deep tech innovations at very early stage. And that's how I got into it. And for the last 8 years, very much into it. And I think every day is a very interesting day of learnings. And that's what Sunil Shekhawat stands for.
Interesting. So you're a doctor, the medical doctor.
Correct.
But again, the debate, you were a dental doctor.
दांत तोड़ते तोड़ते फंडिंग देने लगे. That's how.
That's very unique.
That's very unique. Yeah.
So we'll move to Govind. Govind, I know you've been in and out of IP stuff. I've learned a lot on that side from you and the ecosystem. But again, the same question. We'll go to IP and all, but let's just get to know who you are.
Sure. No, thanks, Sambhav. I come from a tier 3 city from Uttar Pradesh and ended up doing engineering. Failed to become a doctor. Failed PMT twice in my life, but went on to become engineer. Then, of course, now. Father of two, one 10-year-old and 12-year-old business now, and married to superwoman, and now supporting IP. My journey has been a little bit starting from little corporate where I was there in corporate, started my career in IP consulting, where the interesting bit was I was working with larger MNCs and Fortune companies to help them understand where the patent data and IP data is showing the trend, where the IP is moving, the technology is going to move from there. And that was very interesting, kind of 5-6 years there, because I could see how technology is developed first, market developed later. That's a very, very interesting journey I started with. And then 2012-13, when we both were there in the 91 Springboard, almost I think Cowork was actually born at that point. And then yeah, since then I've been doing Arctic Invent, and of course we also evolved as a company, as a pure play outsourcing company to a more deep tech focused IP led consulting firm. So that has been my journey. And in this journey we have been very fortunate to work with amazing deep tech companies, founders, and some actually built very great companies in Indian deep tech ecosystem. So that has been my journey of almost 18 years now, I think. So that's very interesting as well.
Interesting. So Sunil is co-founder of Sanchi Connect, a deep tech accelerator, and you co-founded
Arctic.
or a founder of Arctic Innovation,
Yeah.
play IP for.
Yeah.
But I'll deep dive further, like I
Yeah.
said. From a co-founder perspective, right from your childhood days, can you just run us through some examples of how or what was your upbringing or what was your environment that kind of triggered an entrepreneurial spirit in you guys?
Sure.
Maybe starting off with you, that's exactly we want to highlight, that it's not just a trigger point that people become entrepreneurs. It's like a journey that's lived from childhood. So anything that you want to reflect?
You know what? I'll start with. I think I'm the first entrepreneur in my whole family.
Oh, nice.
I come from a very service class background. My dad was in army, so born and brought up in cantonment areas around the country, multiple cities. We were kind of Banjaras. Every army family is a Banjara.
Yeah.
Second or third year, you have to wind up your bags and move to a new location, and you will be para-dropped into a group of kids, so-called schools, and you will be expected to have a new circle immediately after that. So that's where I've lived my life. But I think some really interesting things which eventually happened because of this whole culture was, and I think that has become a quality of every kid who's born and brought up in an army family. You leave that kid in a room with hundreds of people. In that room, the first person who will be able to create a pool or create a group and lead that would be the one who's lived that life, because that's what you have done across your schooling and all that. Every time you're expected to build your own circle again and again and again, right? So that's what I think that's one thing which might have played an important role in my journey moving towards entrepreneurship. And one more thing which I'm sure has made a major impact on that is my dad. After he was from the medical corps, and after getting retired, he opted to kind of switch his lifestyle towards an entrepreneur, setting up his own lab, and then scaling it from 1 to 4, driving it, scaling it, managing teams, hiring, firing, all sort of things. So I mean, there is no perfect answer to it, but I think these are the two things which probably have played the most important role in my switching from a very service oriented mindset to becoming something which is probably which even I never thought of.
Interesting, because I've seen many failures. So मेरा एक failure था Air Force. I tried Air Force, and I was the only candidate, and yet I got failed. So the psychologist who was training us for that exam gave me one golden rule of knowing people. Everything is perceived from the background of an individual.
Yeah.
So that is one sentence he embedded, and that's why I always want to know where is this coming from. And I'll come to this point. Me and Govind always talk one trait about you, and now I know why it's happening. I'll come back to it. So Govind, over there, you will be very clear. Yeah.
So my journey has been, my father and my grandfather were in Pratapgarh, the tier 3-4 city, whatever category you put it, have been entrepreneurs. And so they आढ़त का business, I don't know if so आढ़त का business my हाँ so trade business, my father was in trade business, and but he in his lifetime he also tried multiple businesses. I mean we tried setting up a factory of a peppermint crystals, and then there was a nursery of amla, there was this aladka, and then he tried his hands on brokerage, share brokering, and that's where of course things did not go so well. But I think in looking at his journey and growing up in a very business family, as a kid I always realized नहीं यार founder नहीं बनेंगे यार, मतलब it's too much, आज नौकरी करेंगे शांत रहेंगे. That's how I started my journey. Something when I joined my first job, I think I realized that सही है, पैसे मिल रहे हैं, काम कर रहे हैं, मजा आ रहा है. But I think it's somewhere in your DNA, it's just 5-6 years, you just get bored, like because it was because you never found the time with your parents because they were so busy, and that of course kind of very hidden कि नहीं यार धंधा तो नहीं करेंगे, फाउंडर तो नहीं बनेंगे. बट कुछ होता है शायद वो whatever you resist it persists, that's how spiritually also it says, and something may be carrying being a Marwadi, वो धंधे में आना ही पड़ा. So end of the day I ended up being a founder, ended up taking those responsibilities which like I was looking at my father working at 2 AM 3 AM, गाड़ी आ रही है उतरवानी है, आज मैं परसों नरसों कुछ रात में 3 बजे तक प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि भाई डिलीवरी है. सो नाउ आई अंडरस्टैंड दैट एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम ऑफ कोर्स नाउ आई रिलेट टू दैट स्टोरी. सो आई थिंक दैट हैज बीन माय स्टोरी एज वेल, एंड एट द सेम टाइम when Sunil said that he has changed so many schools, interesting thing about being from a small city is because every time back in days when I was growing up, school was growing as a business, right? Every 2 years there was a new school in the city. So I changed 6 schools, by the way, in my 12 year. I never got expelled or something. It's just I changed schools 6 times in my career. Just my father being in one city, I changed 6 schools. Why? Because ये school अच्छा है, इसमें डाल देते हैं. So I think that's also has been very interesting journey for me, that I have to change schools every 2-3 years just because कि अच्छा मिलेगा. So I think that has been my journey, and yeah, that has been a pure, I would say, something destiny, something coming from the background, but yeah, it was little bit accident as well.
6 बार स्कूल करना तो I think
it's very
it's a milestone of its.
तो सुनील सर ने डीप टेक के बड़े 3 पैरामीटर समझाए. आई थिंक मेरे लिए आसान थे समझने, बट लेट्स ट्राई एंड प्लग इन एआई इनटू दिस आल्सो. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस पर से क्या है आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, उसको आप कैसे एक्सप्लेन करोगे बिल्कुल लेमैन टर्म में फॉर अ कॉलेज स्टूडेंट?
देखो, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस अगर ऐसे देखा जाए तो इट्स जस्ट अ मैथ्स. इट्स जस्ट मैथ्स. इट इज टेकिंग सम डेटा, उसको प्रोसेस किया या प्रेडिक्ट किया कि भाई आगे क्या हो सकता है. सो उसमें डेटा से आपने लर्न किया और उसको एक मैथमेटिकल मॉडल में डाल के ये निकाला कि क्या पॉसिबल इसका रिजल्ट हो सकता है या आंसर हो सकता है. अगर देखा जाए तो एआई वही है, और उसको करने के लिए मैथमेटिकल मॉडल, या उसको हम टेक्निकल भाषा में एल्गोरिथम बोल देते हैं कई बार, जो बट है वो एक तरह से सेट ऑफ रूल्स. सो वही एआई है. एआई इज बेसिकली सेट ऑफ रूल्स एंड इट इज सेल्फ हीलिंग, सेल्फ लर्निंग. वो अपने आप अपनी चीज़ों को समझ लेता है, अपने आप अपने को करेक्ट कर सकता है. लेकिन है ये मैथ्स, एंड ऑफ द डे इट्स टेक्निकल, एंड है ये मैथ्स जो कोडिंग के फॉर्म से फुलफिल होती है.
तो आप कह रहे हैं एलएलएम मॉडल्स की, अगर इफ यू हैव टू से दे आर
मैथमेटिकल मॉडल्स. एंड ऑफ द डे उसका एक इक्वेशन है, उसमें आप टोकन्स या नंबर्स, जो आजकल फैंसी वर्ड है टोकन सब बोलते हैं, वो है क्या? टोकन इज बेसिकली 0-1 एंड इट इज गोइंग इन एलएलएम एंड इट इज गेटिंग प्रोसेस्ड. तो देखा जाए तो है तो ये मैथ्स की इक्वेशन ही. जितना मेरे 10th में 40 नंबर आए थे, आज मुझे लगता है मुझे मैथ्स ही ज़्यादा करनी होती है. आज की दुनिया ही मैथ्स पे चल रही है.
एग्रीड. आई थिंक सम पीपल आस्क फॉर एन एडवाइस कि तुम तो सीईओ, क्या करना चाहिए हमारे बच्चे को, तो मैं ये तो जरूर बोलता हूँ, मैथ्स मत छुड़वाना. एटलीस्ट टिल 12th दे शुड बी डूइंग मैथ्स, चाहे आगे काम आए ना आए, बट वो अप्लाइड मैथमेटिक्स इन लाइफ, रियल लाइफ, समवेयर इट हेल्प्स. सो लेट्स गो इनटू योर डोमेन, राइट? सो डीप टेक इन आईपी इज लाइक घर बना रहे हैं लेकिन ओनरशिप के पेपर्स नहीं है. इज इट ट्रू फॉर से डीप टेक ऑल्सो कि आईपी नहीं है तो काहे का डीप टेक?
दैट इज ट्रू, एंड ऑल्सो समटाइम्स लोग, जो सबसे बड़ा कंफ्यूजन होता है कि आईपी को पेटेंट्स या ट्रेडमार्क्स मानते हैं. विच इज़ नॉट ट्रू. IP इज़ मच ब्रॉडर. जैसे सुनील ने बोला कि इट इज़ हार्ड टू रेप्लिकेट. इट कुड बी बिकॉज ऑफ द एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ द पर्सन, कि वो एक फाउंडर है जो 20 साल से किसी कॉर्पोरेट में कोई एक पर्टिकुलर इनोवेशन कर रहा है, वो उसका IP भी है. वो पेटेंट उसकी ओनरशिप स्टैब्लिश करता है डेफिनेटली. उसने क्या नया किया है वो डेफिनेटली स्टैब्लिश करता है. बट एक स्मार्ट इंजीनियरिंग इज़ नॉट इक्वल टू पेटेंट्स समटाइम्स. सो एक चीज़ जो हमें समझनी है कि जब हम IP की बात करते हैं तो पहली बात वो थोड़ा ब्रॉडर अम्ब्रेला है, और उसके अंदर जो हम लीगली प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हैं वो फिर पेटेंट्स ट्रेडमार्क्स की बातें होती हैं. सो डीप टेक में इनहेरेंटली अगर आप कुछ डेवलप कर रहे हो, कुछ चीज़ें शायद आप एक्सपीरियंस से ला रहे हो, आपके सीक्रेट्स हो सकते हैं, आपका बहुत कुछ कॉन्वर्सेशन हो सकता है उस चीज़ को बनाने के लिए, लेकिन लीगली आप उसमें क्या प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हो. जैसे आप घर भी बना रहे हो तो कुछ पेपर्स होते हैं, लेकिन आप घर के बाहर लॉक लगाते हो, फेंस लगाते हो, गार्ड बिठाते हो. देयर आर मल्टीपल एस्पेक्ट्स टू इट. डेफिनेटली आप अगर कोई चीज़ बना रहे हो, एक लॉजिकल ह्यूमन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखा जाए, अगर आप घर बना रहे हैं तो क्या आप लॉक नहीं लगाओगे? क्या आप उसके आगे फेंस नहीं रखोगे? अगर आपको लगता है कि उसमें बहुत कुछ वैल्यूबल तो आप गार्ड नहीं बिठाओगे. दैट विल क्रिएट ऑल्सो अ परसेप्शन टू द पर्सन हु इज लुकिंग एट द हाउस कि हाँ यार ज़रूर अच्छा घर है. तो दैट्स हाउ IP हेल्प्स इन दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन.
Right. So I'll come back to what's the best time for IP to plug in if I'm an early stage deep tech founder.
Sure.
But I'll come back to Sunil, and do we need long-term patience which is non-negotiable, and how is a startup different from a deep tech startup?
या जिस चीज़ को बनाने में years का time लग रहा है, and if somebody wants to be a stakeholder in that company, of course you'll have to be patient. You cannot expect कि आज मैंने अपना कुछ सोचा बनाने के लिए और तो कुछ सोचा तो उसमें पैसा खर्च करने जा रहा हूँ. You're investing today and don't expect that tomorrow you're getting something out of it. That may happen in a D2C business or maybe in a SaaS at some point, which is much shorter than a deep tech journey. But it takes when the development is then the technology development is taking years. तो जब तक टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं बनेगी और टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोडक्ट की शेप नहीं लेगी और प्रोडक्ट लोगों के हाथ में नहीं जाएगा, तब तक who's going to pay for you? There is nobody who's going to pay for it. True. So patience is a must. Patience is the starting point of this whole ecosystem of deep tech.
एक चीज़ जो मैं ऐड करूँगा संभव इसमें कि आप अगर D2C या SaaS की वेव्स को देखो, उसमें क्या होता था जनरली आप जल्दी से बनाते थे और एडाप्शन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में आपको बहुत मेहनत लगती थी या टाइम लगता या जल्दी हो जाता था, या आपको पैसे जो जलाने होते थे आपको उसी में ही पैसे लगाने होते थे कि आपका एक SaaS टूल है या D2C ब्रांड है, आपको मार्केटिंग में पंप करना है. लेकिन बनने में वो बहुत जल्दी बन जाते थे. मे बी 6 मंथ्स का जेस्टेशन हो गया, 3 महीने का जेस्टेशन हो गया, डिपेंडिंग ऑन हाउ एक्सपीरियंस द फाउंडर इज. डीप टेक में आप 5 साल 8 साल टेक्नोलॉजी बना रहे हो, उसके बाद वो वैलिडेट होगी, फिर एडाप्शन आएगा. तो आप ये देखो कि जर्नी क्योंकि डेवलपमेंट की लंबी है, इस वजह से ये जर्नी ही लंबी हो रही है. एडॉप्शन इज स्टिल अ प्रॉब्लम. आप आज की डेट में देखो ChatGPT अभी भी वो इतना डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की टेलीकॉम के पास जा रहे हैं. टेक्नोलॉजी इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, एडॉप्शन इज अ प्रॉब्लम. तो डीप टेक के साथ वो और मल्टीप्लाई हो जाती है क्योंकि वो थोड़ा सा कहीं ना कहीं टेक्निकल भी हो सकता है इन नेचर. पीपल डोंट वांट टू चेंज. सो इस वजह से डीप टेक की जर्नी और थोड़ी लंबी हो जाती है क्योंकि डेवलपमेंट साइकिल बहुत लंबी हो जाती है.
तो सुनील सर, ये मेरे को ना एक और कन्फ्यूजन क्रिएट करता है फिर ये, क्योंकि डे इन डे आउट आई एम अराउंड फाउंडर्स, राइट. एक फाउंडर माइंडसेट है टू फेल, कि यार जल्द फेल फास्ट एंड बिल्ड फास्टर.
करेक्ट.
बट जहाँ बनने में टेक्नोलॉजी 5-7 साल लग रहे हैं, वो फाउंडर को थोड़ा और वॉचफुल नहीं होना पड़ेगा? उसके पास फेल फास्ट वाली जो अपॉर्चुनिटी है ही नहीं, क्योंकि उसको बनाने में इतना टाइम लग रहा है.
नहीं, that's true, and that's where as a country we struggle at times also, because research करना है, it takes a lot of time, and then the technology has to take a shape in the form of product. It has to go in the hands of people. That's where the real validation starts. टेक्नोलॉजी को लैब में टेस्ट करना और उसके बाद कस्टमर के हाथ में टेस्ट करना इज अ वेरी डिफरेंट जर्नी. दैट्स वेयर द पेशेंस, दैट्स वेयर द होल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ की पेशेंस तो ठीक है रख लिया, बट डजंट मीन्स दैट इफ यू हैव बीन पेशेंट दैट यू आर डेफिनेटली गोइंग टू गेट द रिजल्ट. द चांस ऑफ फेलियर इज स्टिल देयर. There is always an ambiguity, but yes, if you are able to break that barrier with the customer, right, you are through. Unlike any other segment of market, you will see the adoption पे मेरा थोड़ा सा गोविंद यहाँ पर ना ओपिनियन थोड़ा अलग है, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि if it is really a cutting edge innovation, and that too in a market, in a enterprise segment. थोड़ी देर के लिए हम कमर्शियल उसको भूल जाते हैं. The need and the desperation to try it out is much higher than any other segment of whether it is SaaS or D2C in deep tech, because nobody has experienced. There is a suspense around it. तो इसलिए मेरे को ये लगता है यहाँ पर कि डीप टेक जो अपने आप में एक जो इंडस्ट्री है, while I understand the risk that the founder carries all along till the time it goes out and makes the first penny out of it is very high, and at every step 10 साल की जर्नी है अगर वहां तक जाने की, तो 10 साल every day you are encountering that risk. But the results, take my words my friends, are very different.
True.
Very different from you can expect from any other model.
एंड फेल फास्ट में एक चीज मैं जरूर ऐड करूंगा कि फेल फास्ट इज दैट लेट्स से इफ यू आर कमिटेड टू अ technology, or let's say a domain, let's say robotics for that matter, right? We have seen so many companies even in the deep tech space who have failed and improvised their PMFs, or they have उन्होंने फाइंड किया कि अच्छा ठीक है मैं रोबोटिक्स में हूँ, मैंने ये बनाया, फेल हो गया, लेकिन उसी सेगमेंट में मैं क्या सर्व कर सकता हूँ. कई बार आपके टेक्नोलॉजी इनोवेशन वो प्रॉब्लम को सिर्फ थोड़ा सा ट्वीक करके आपको मिल जाएगा. तो ऐसा नहीं कि फेल फास्ट की अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं है. ऑफ कोर्स वो कैसे करते हैं उसकी ज़रूरत है. अगर आप कस्टमर को जल्दी ऑन बोर्ड कर रहे हैं, जल्दी से उनको अपने पार्ट में डेवलपमेंट के साइकिल में इंक्लूड कर रहे हैं, तो देयर इज स्टिल अ चांस ऑफ फेलियर, बट देन यू ऑल्सो हैव अ फेल फास्ट एंड देन यू स्टिल गेट सक्सेस आउट ऑफ इट. सो दैट्स वन काइंड ऑफ स्मॉल नुआंस कि ऐसा नहीं है कि बिल्कुल अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं है फेल होने की, है. बट ऑफ कोर्स एक शायद एक लिमिटेड सेट ऑफ है कि आज मैं, ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं आज और वो मेरे ख्याल से सभी फाउंडर्स के साथ है. D2C में अगर हम बात करें तो भाई D2C में आप फेल हो सकते हैं, एक प्रोडक्ट फेल हो सकता है, ठीक है आप दूसरा प्रोडक्ट लाओगे, तीसरा प्रोडक्ट लाओगे, रहोगे तो D2C या उसी ब्रांड में. सो आई थिंक दैट्स ऑल्सो एप्लीकेबल इन डीप टेक.
So I'll come a little more to the patent side, which is the IP side. थोड़ा बहुत जो मैं ट्रैक करता हूँ, because one parameter we've been looking at institutes और academia कि वहाँ प्रोफेसर्स बड़े बड़े, किसी के पास 20 पेटेंट है, किसी के पास 30 पेटेंट है, लेकिन कमर्शलाइज करने में सबको दिक्कत आती है. But one data point I was looking at, and I think I discussed it with you also at some point of time, was that number of patents that India is registering is finally starting to show good. Yeah. But the debate again was whether the quality is good or not. Yeah. So my question here is, one, at what stage does getting the IP done, this whole process done, becomes critical? Where does Arctic innovation come in, at what stage? And then without commercialization, does it even make sense? I mean, there are people, there are folks, scientists having so many patents registered, but not more than 5-10% is what I feel are commercially viable.
Sure.
How does this whole IP thing plug into the startup deep tech ecosystem?
ठीक है, मैं इस क्वेश्चन को थोड़ा ब्रेक करता हूँ दो चीज़ में, एकेडमिया के लिए और स्टार्टअप के लिए. आई थिंक एकेडमिया में बहुत सारा जो प्रेशर है वो NIRF की रैंकिंग से भी आ रहा है, बहुत सारे एक्सटर्नल प्रेशर्स हैं. जैसे गवर्नमेंट हैज़ मैंडेटेड टू इंस्टीट्यूट व्हेन दे गेट रैंक्ड, आपको कितने नंबर ऑफ पेटेंट्स हैं वो दिखाने हैं, उसके बेस पे आपको कुछ सर्टेन नंबर्स मिलेंगे, जिससे आपकी NAC रेटिंग्स होंगी या NIRF की रैंकिंग्स होंगी. NIRF की रैंकिंग अच्छी होगी तो एडमिशन अच्छे होंगे तो प्लेसमेंट अच्छे होंगे. सो समटाइम्स देयर इज अ इनहेरेंट प्रेशर ऑन लॉट ऑफ दीज इंस्टीट्यूट्स और प्रोफेसर्स, बिकॉज दे गेट ग्रांट्स विद अ मैंडेट कि भाई यू हैव टू गेट इतने पेटेंट तो निकालोगे इसमें से. सो समटाइम्स दैट्स ऑल्सो बिकम अ लिटिल बिट फ्लफ ऑल्सो. एंड अगर एक अभी रिसेंटली स्टोरी आई थी, जनरली भी थी, कि योर स्टोरी पे एक कवर था कि इफ़ यू देर आर इंडिया में बहुत सारा पेटेंट फाइल हो रहा है लेकिन एग्जामिन नहीं होता, वो सिर्फ पब्लिश होकर रह जाते हैं. तो वाइल वी आर लुकिंग एट द नंबर्स, हम बहुत ज़्यादा ग्रांट्स पे या बहुत ज़्यादा क्वालिटी पे नहीं आ पाए, क्योंकि शायद हमने जो शुरुआत की वो कहीं ना कहीं वो थोड़ी सी फ्लॉट थी. बट दैट्स हाउ, अगर मैं हिस्ट्री देखूँ चाइना की या जो ऐसे कंट्रीज थे जहाँ पे IP का लिटिल थोड़ा बूम सा हुआ, शुरू में फोकस करना ही पड़ेगा आपको क्वांटिटी पे, एंड विच इज़ फाइन. आई थिंक वो हर बिजनेस का अपना मॉडल है, बट हमें लगता है कि डेफिनेटली क्वालिटी इज़ द पैरामाउंट, कमर्शलाइजेशन इज़ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. बट कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा सा सिस्टम भी डिज़ाइन किया गया कि चलो ठीक है, लोगों में अवेयरनेस तो आए. दैट्स वन. कब करना चाहिए, दैट्स अ वेरी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्वर्सेशन, बिकॉज आई थिंक माय कन्विक्शन इज कि आपको लगता है कि आपका जो बिजनेस स्ट्रैटेजी है वो आपका आईपी स्ट्रैटेजी को ड्राइव करना चाहिए। कि अगर आपको लग रहा है कि अब मैं इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए रेडी हूँ, अब मेरी वो कॉन्वर्सेशन रेडी है कि हाँ मुझे समझ में आ गया कि मैंने क्या बनाया है, तो देन यू हैव टू स्टार्ट लुकिंग एट कि उसको प्रोटेक्ट कैसे किया जाए। जैसे अगर आपने देख लिया कि ये मेरा लैंड है, बहुत एक लॉजिकली आप सोचो कि मुझे लगा कि अरे वाह मैं एक नए शहर में गया, मुझे एक अच्छी लगी लैंड, मैंने एक्वायर कर लिया। व्हाट वुड यू डू द फर्स्ट? यू विल ट्राई टू डू सम पेपर वर्क टू एस्टैब्लिश योर ओनरशिप। कि चलो ठीक है, एक बार बयाना देके पेपर पे तो लिख लिया, एक कच्चा पेपर पे लिख लिया कि चलो ठीक है भाई ये हमारा हो गया। तो आई थिंक आईपी का कई बार जो आईपीआर का जो कॉन्वर्सेशन है, जो रजिस्ट्रेशन का बात है, वो कहीं ना कहीं हमें उस क्लैरिटी पे लेके जाता है कि आप किस पॉइंट पे इतने क्लियर हो कि हाँ हमें समझ में आ गया कि हम क्या करने वाले हैं, हम किस ज़मीन पे अपना खंबा गाड़ने वाले हैं। उस ज़मीन को प्रोटेक्ट करना आपकी जिम्मेवारी है। उस समय वो स्टेज कभी भी हो सकती है, अर्ली स्टेज भी हो सकती है, कॉन्सेप्ट स्टेज भी हो सकती है, आप मार्केट लीडर हो तब भी हो सकती है, बिकॉज यू आर इवॉल्विंग एवरी डे and that's how you also keep evolving your horizon. You will keep expanding your circle. ऐसा तो नहीं कि आपने ये ले लिया, एक टाइल ले ली, अब आप दूसरी टाइल लेना चाहोगे, तीसरी टाइल लेना चाहोगे। So that's how it works. But start कहीं ना कहीं करना होगा, लेकिन वो जो स्टार्ट होना चाहिए वो बिजनेस से ड्राइव होना चाहिए। आईपी कंसल्टेंट कहीं नहीं बता सकता फाउंडर को कि भाई अरे आप 5 पेटेंट फाइल कर लो। आपकी बिजनेस स्ट्रैटेजी क्या बोलती है, क्यों ज़रूरत है, उसके बाद डेफिनेटली आईपी कंसल्टेंट कैन हेल्प कि हाँ सर आपको 5 करने चाहिए, एंड दिस इज हाउ इट मेक्स सेंस। सो दैट्स हाउ इट शुड बी लुक्ड एट।
सो डीप टेक सिनेरियो में आईपी इज जस्ट पेटेंट और देयर इज समथिंग एल्स?
So there are a lot of things. IP, as I said, is a very broad umbrella. There are patents, there are trademarks which are for your trade names, copyrights हैं, designs हैं, secrets है, trade secret strategy होनी चाहिए। एक एटलीस्ट फाउंडर्स को पता होना चाहिए कि ट्रेड सीक्रेट स्ट्रैटेजी क्या है उनकी, कैसे सीक्रेट्स रखे जाएंगे, कैसे उसको मैनेज किए जाएंगे, अगर ऐसा कुछ है तो पेटेंट्स डेफिनेटली एक टेक्निकल, क्योंकि हम इंडस्ट्री की बात करें उसमें पेटेंट्स कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा ज़्यादा सेंटर स्टेज में आता है। बट आप घर बनाते हो तो क्या सिर्फ लॉक, बाहर गेट पे लॉक लगाते हो, भाई फेंस भी बनाते हो, ठीक है, आप एक कैमरा भी लगाते हो। तो अगर आप कोई चीज़ प्रोटेक्ट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो तो आप मल्टीपल चीज़ें ढूंढोगे। आप ये नहीं सोचोगे कि चलो भाई एक लॉक लगा दिया खत्म हो गया। सो यू हैव टू फाइंड अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स टू प्रोटेक्ट योर टर्फ, एंड आईपीआर्स आर बेसिकली पेटेंट्स विल टेक अ सेंटर स्टेज कि हाँ शायद ये सबसे बड़ा लॉक मेरे लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है, बट बाकी चीज़ें भी देखनी पड़ेंगी, एग्रीमेंट्स देखने पड़ेंगे। आई थिंक सबसे बड़ा जो प्रॉब्लम होता है आपके एम्प्लॉयज़ के साथ एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, को फाउंडर एग्रीमेंट्स नहीं है, या आपके जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स हैं जिन्होंने जो इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं उनके साथ आपका प्रॉपर एग्रीमेंट ही नहीं है टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफ़र का। सो आईपी सब कुछ है उस तरह से।
Interesting. So, Sunil, I'll come back to you and I'll come back to that point also, which me and Govind have been talking about. We don't find you in office. You're always roaming around the whole of India. And now you've given us the reason that it's in the DNA. You've seen Bharat and now you're building for Bharat, especially on the deep tech ecosystem. You've been around the whole ecosystem now for quite a while. What exists today in terms of Indian deep tech startup ecosystem, right from say government side, private side, corporate side? And how important is a community and network in that domain?
For an ecosystem like deep tech to flourish, you definitely need a very strong ecosystem, and that's where my journey of deep tech started. That's what NASSCOM took a cautious call then, when we found that there is a decent shift in terms of creation of deep tech startups, innovations, IPs. Real cutting edge technology, and that's where NASSCOM took a call that okay, if we have to really support it, what's the best way to do it? While capital will flow from the government and the private sector, but the bigger thing, something which is much bigger than everything, is having the right set of people around you. That's what our call was. In 2018, when we started Deep Tech Club at NASSCOM, the whole intent was, can we really get the most technical and R&D centric folks alongside the founders who are trying to build these cutting edge technologies. At the same time, get them the exposure of the business side from the industry. Who is going to be the buyer of those products? The industry. Can we get those people well in advance in front of them to ensure that they have a better visibility of what they should be building? जो अभी गोविंद ने बोला कि the whole innovation journey should start from the market side.
True.
So can we get it little earlier in the journey of a researcher rather कि वो प्रोडक्ट बनाए फिर मार्केट में जाए फिर धक्के खाए, उससे पहले अगर हम TRL 2-3 के ऊपर ही if we are able to get the person in front of somebody who's going to be their buyer, it will certainly reduce the cost of failure for the whole nation. That's what our idea was, and that was the intent with which the Deep Tech Club we started, and I think this was one of the finest initiative we did. And precisely this is something that while we were the first, and then there were a lot of other associations and other champions, IITs, they started also leveraging their ecosystem, because of course when an IIT decides to do it, they have an alumni base which graduated from there. These are all technical guys, the creamy layer of the country, right? It was very handy for them to get those people, and I think we need multiple such initiatives for the country to really be there. If we really want to become a China or a US in terms of building those kind of technologies, we need more and more such initiative, and that's what we are also doing as Sanchi Connect. We are also trying to get the customer side, the mentor side, the corporate side, the investor side. End of the day, we are all, I think there are maybe, if not less, there are at least 10 more Sanchi Connects needed in the country, right? So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll add, and it is from his investor, one of the largest investor, Rahul ji said in one of the event that India deep tech is it's like a child. Literally, it just got born. As a nation, we are aspiring to become product nation. We want to develop technologies. It's like a child. And he said, and I really, connected with that thought, that it takes a village to raise a child. And that's why Sanchi exists. I think that's what my learning about Sanchi has been. I'll add to what Sunil said. Because we need community to raise this deep tech in India. Because that's how, if you look at IT services business, which has been a growth engine for us, also at some point, was because there were a lot of initiatives like NASSCOMs and others which actually raised this child to a big one. Right? I hope with Sanchi, and like Sunil said, that there has to be multiple Sanchi. I think with this initiative will also grow this child of deep tech to the next level.
So मेरा question उस तरफ भी था sir, that there's industry, there's corporate. Of course, we started off around 2009 to 13, or official startup policy 16 में आई थी. You're saying NASSCOM was 2018 and something, but I believe government side of initiatives also started say post COVID. Government side से क्या support है? Are there good enough accelerators? Are there enough grants? What's happening on that side of the story? Is there enough support system, or you feel there is a lot to be done?
No, I think I'm a very big fan of the way things have evolved in the country. I mean, you will always find people cribbing for it, but let me be very upfront about my personal perception. I got into the startup space when, in 2013 with my first startup, and there were hardly 8 or 10 VCs or angel networks you would always remember, right? Then came 2016 when the whole Startup India thing came up. The best thing that this initiative has done, making that startup as a mainstream career, right? I remember, I was when I was getting married, I was doing my startup, so it was so hard for my wife to tell her parents that he's ladka startup karta hai. So it was so difficult for everyone. In fact, when I came back from my government job as a medical officer in West Bengal, the biggest challenge for me to convince my parents was क्या पागल हो गया लड़का यार, 25 साल की एज में कौन नौकरी छोड़ के आता है सरकारी. That's how we started.
You were in a government job.
Yeah. So you know what? That's the success, and that was just the starting point. The way the whole campaigns have been driven, the way the capital got allocated, the way the infrastructure got created, the way the whole ecosystem was nurtured, the storytelling around the world. I think for the first time, I think in the country, all the machinery in the country has come together to make sure that one particular segment becomes the real engine of growth, which is startups. So I am a big fan of whatever is happening in the country, right? And I can tell you that, in the next 2-3 years, the whole nation is going to shift its orbit with the new ANRF and RDI funds coming in. And I'm so glad that I'm part of the deep tech ecosystem, right? Because the whole scheme of ANRF and RDI is oriented towards deep tech, and this is going to be a very different experience for all of us who are anyway connected with this ecosystem. The whole world of startups in deep tech is changing.
So as I say, tier 2, tier 3 or tier 4 deep tech founder, how can I take help from Sanchi Connect or from you, and what help I can get?
You know what, as a community platform, what we realized and what really became our driving point in 2022 was we realized, okay, where are the VCs located? And I'm talking about, while it's also generic for the startup, but we realized that, okay, being a private entity, we don't have the appetite to serve the whole startup space. Let's try to impact the category that we can really focus on. That's where we picked up deep tech, right? Because we realize it's the future of the country. If we have to become a 5 trillion economy, this segment has to perform well for the nation. Right? That's how we looked at it. Now we realize, okay, where are the VCs? Where is the larger ecosystem? It's in Bangalore, it's in Gurgaon, it's in Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, and to some extent Pune. But what percentage of startups exist here? I agree. Today, if you say the prevalence of startups in deep tech might be higher in these geographies, but look at the last 3-4 years of data in Startup India. 60% of the startups in India are today coming from tier 2 and tier 3 locations. Where is the ecosystem there?
Right.
Can we build up something which really mainstreams the whole ecosystem, brings both the sides together? That's how we thought of, can we create a phygital scalable community where we have founders from all around the country. Even if somebody is sitting in Port Blair, can we really help them? Can we give them a real-time access and visibility to the industry mentor or somebody who is investing in deep tech? That was our driving point. And I think with wherever we have reached, we were able to do a good service to the nation in that way.
So you are more coming from acceleration side, where it's, I don't know if B2B is the right word or B2G is the right word. Or say if I have to use Sanchi Connect's platform, I have to go through other accelerators who are connected to Sanchi Connect?
Not that. We are very open. Doesn't matter whether you're a B2B, B2C, B2D or whatever you call it, right? For us, what really matters is it's a gated community and a community which is very much centered around the needs, the today's and future need of a deep tech founder. So number one, if you're a startup, we just see whether you have something which is patentable today or tomorrow, which can become your core IP. That's the qualifier for us as a startup. For the remaining ecosystem around the startup, which could be an investor or a corporate or a service or whoever, we need to be principally convinced that, you know what, if this person given access to this community, the community will benefit. So see, the whole orientation is towards the founder, right? For me, if the founder is getting benefited from even a plumber, right, I will get that plumber in the community. That's how we look at it.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think community is the new mode, and that's the new infrastructure for the whole startup ecosystem. So coming back to the patent side of it, does India have a capacity issue or a mindset issue in terms of what's shaping up right now?
I think there are few things are mindset issues and few things are also capacity. One, on the mental side, one thing that we have to look at is most of the time, I'm sure we both run a service business, it's sabse sasta, sabse sundar. And you and I both know कि compliance शुरू में सस्ता होता है, बाद में महंगा होता है. So that's how IP और patents are. So sometimes हमारा mindset वो होता है कि सबसे सस्ता चाहिए. So I think that's one part of it. Second, एक mindset ये है कि अरे हम इतना बड़ा थोड़े बनाएंगे कि पेटेंट होगा. एक वो mindset protection का या वो mindset सोचना कि हमने जो बनाया है एक्चुअली में वो प्रोटेक्टेबल है, एक ये डेफिनेटली एक माइंडसेट शिफ्ट है या गैप है यहाँ पे, जिसकी वजह से हम इंडियन फाउंडर्स में ये नोटिस करते हैं कि दे डोंट रियली गो फॉर दिस और हैव दिस, अरे ये तो बड़ा ऑब्वियस है, लेट अस डिसाइड कि ऑब्वियस है या प्रोटेक्टेबल है या नहीं प्रोटेक्टेबल है, कैसे प्रोटेक्टेबल है. तो दैट इज इट. ऑन द कैपेसिटी आई थिंक अगेन थिंग्स आर मूविंग जहाँ मैंने जब अपना करियर शुरू किया था तो इंडिया में पेटेंट मिलने में 5 साल 6 साल भी लग जाते थे। आज वो हम 1.5 साल 1 साल में हो जाता है, 1 साल में हो जाता है with a tatkal window and available for startups and MSMEs. There has been some hiccups because of some hirings at the patent office, but now I think things are also getting now settled. तो 1 साल में लगभग आपको पेटेंट मिल जाता है इंडिया में। एंड आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ द जियोग्राफीज इफ यू लुक एट US और यूरोप, most of the geographies have some way or other to fast track your patent if needed and if it aligns with your business strategy. Of course इस पे नहीं जाएंगे बहुत डिटेल, क्योंकि ये बहुत ऐसा टॉपिक है कि कब जल्दी होना चाहिए कब लेट होना चाहिए, बहुत सारा कॉन्वर्सेशन है इसमें। बट आई थिंक एक जो फाउंडर का माइंडसेट ये है ना कि अरे नहीं ये तो बड़ा लंबा सा काम है, बड़ा मेहनत का काम है, ऐसा है नहीं। सो कहीं ना कहीं वो बैलेंस करना कि जो मैंने बनाया है वो अच्छा है या नहीं अच्छा है, लीव इट टू द प्रोफेशनल एंड ऑल्सो डू इट प्रॉपरली। जब मैं हाउस की हम लोग बात करते हैं तो क्या आप बहुत बढ़िया हाउस बनाओ और उसमें 10 रुपए का लॉक नहीं लगाओगे? सो हैव दैट मेंटालिटी समटाइम्स। वो मेंटालिटी शायद हमने, क्योंकि हमारे देश में सर्विस को पे करना बड़ा मुश्किल होता है, आई थिंक वेरी टफ इवन फॉर अस। आई मीन कमिंग फ्रॉम अ वेरी बिजनेस बैकग्राउंड, आई कैन इवन रिलेट टू दिस कि एज अ फाउंडर्स इन इंडिया it's very hard to pay for service, and that's also kind of affects these things.
So does the quality of how the patent application is written comes into picture?
Absolutely. So if you think about कि क्या what is patent in a sense?
मैं इस क्वेश्चन को और थोड़ा सिंप्लीफाई कर देता हूँ ताकि पूरा कवर हो जाए। मैं एक डीप टेक स्टार्टअप का फाउंडर हूँ। मेरे लिए कब पेटेंट फाइल करना ज़रूरी है, क्या प्रोसेस रहता है, कब मुझे आपके पास आना चाहिए, वो जर्नी कैसी होगी? कैन यू जस्ट रन थ्रू दैट होल साइकिल वंस?
तो पहली बात, आप अगर डीप टेक फाउंडर हैं तो आपको ये सोचना है कि क्या आपका जो आइडिया है वो इतना तैयार है कि आपको ये पता है कि मैंने बनाया क्या है और कैसे बनाया है, और या आप क्या बनाना चाहते हैं। इवन दैट इज़ ऑल्सो गुड टू स्टार्ट विद। सो दैट इज़ द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट यू नीड टू नो। सेकेंड, वो जब आइडिया हमारे पास आता है हम उसको एज अ प्रोफेशनल देख सकते हैं, उसके बाद हमें वो आइडिया पेटेंट ऑफिस के पास लेके जाना होता है। पेटेंट ऑफिस उसको लेता है, जो भी टेक्निकल रिक्वायरमेंट्स होती हैं उनको चेक करता है कि क्या आप उन टेक्निकल रिक्वायरमेंट्स को फुलफिल करते हैं या नहीं करते हैं। अगर वो बोलता है उसको कोई ऑब्जेक्शन है तो वो आपको क्लैरिफिकेशन के लिए पूछता है कि भाई ये मैंने पढ़ा आपके एप्लीकेशन में ये चीज़ क्लियर नहीं है, तो वो आप उसको क्लैरिफाई करते हो या उसको थोड़ा मॉडिफाई करते हैं, देन यू गेट द पेटेंट। Now, when you get the patent, what you get a right is like कि ये मेरी ज़मीन है, अगर कोई इस पे आएगा तो मैं उसको मना कर सकता हूँ कि भाई इसमें ये काम मत करो क्योंकि ये ज़मीन मेरी है। Now you tell me, अगर आपके ज़मीन के कागज़ पक्के नहीं है और प्रॉपरली नहीं है, जिसमें क्लेम्स हैं या जो बाउंड्रीज हैं वो ठीक से डिफाइंड नहीं है, क्या वो आप अपने प्रॉपर्टी पे किसी और को यूज़ करने से रोक सकते हो? यही चीज़ पेटेंट में भी होता है कि पेटेंट डॉक्यूमेंट अगर ठीक से नहीं लिखा है, क्लेम्स नहीं लिखे हैं या उसको आपने कैप्चर ही नहीं किया कि आप करना क्या चाहते हो, तो क्या आप उसको एक्चुअली में रियल वर्ल्ड में यूज़ कर पाओगे? क्या इन्वेस्टर जब उसको देखेगा तो ये सोचेगा कि हाँ यार ये क्लियर है या ये रोक सकता है, डिफेंडेबल है कि नहीं है? तो डिफेंस इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज आप उसी लिए ये सब कर रहे हो। सो इस तरह से फाउंडर्स इस चीज़ को देख सकते हैं, और ऐसा नहीं कि इसके लिए बहुत समय चाहिए, इसके लिए ढंग से एक प्रोसेस अगर आप आते हो किसी प्रोफेशनल के पास तो वो उसको गाइड करें। दैट इज़ ऑल्सो द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ IP प्रोफेशनल, विच वी ऑलवेज मेक श्योर कि जो फाउंडर्स हैं उनकी जर्नी से वो कैसे कनेक्ट हो, ये स्टोरी बहुत सॉलिड होनी चाहिए।
इंटरेस्टिंग। सो व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इज प्रोडक्ट रेडी नहीं भी है तो पेटेंट तो हो ही सकता है।
पेटेंट आप करिए। अगर ऐसा अगर आप घर बना रहे हो तो क्या ज़मीन पहले प्रोटेक्ट नहीं करोगे? Again, relating to a very logically in our real world, IPRs are like any other asset. जो आपका नॉर्मल एसेट है, आप उसको ट्रांसफ़र कर सकते हो, लाइसेंस कर सकते हो, वैसे ही आप जो भी पेटेंट्स, ट्रेडमार्क्स या कॉपीराइट्स हैं, आप उनको सेम राइट्स आपको मिल रहे हैं, तो उनके लिए भी सेम रूल्स ही अप्लाई होंगे ना।
क्योंकि गोइंग बैक टू सुनील सर, मैंने काफ़ी फाउंडर्स देखे डीप टेक में जो रेवेन्यू जनरेट कर रहे हैं, तो मैंने इस सवाल पूछा तो पेटेंट करा रखा होगा, तो जैसे नहीं हम वी आर गोइंग टू अप्लाई फॉर इट। हाउ डू यू ट्रीट सच फाउंडर्स? आप भी एनकाउंटर करते हो कि नहीं करते हो? और अगर देयर आर टू सेट्स ऑफ फाउंडर्स कमिंग ऑन योर प्लेट, वन हु इज़ वेरी रॉ जस्ट थिंकिंग करना क्या, एंड द अदर जो काफ़ी आगे जा चुका और उसने पेटेंट नहीं कराया, हाउ डू यू गाइड बोथ एंड व्हाट्स योर स्ट्रैटेजी टू गाइड देम?
देखिए जो अभी गोविंद ने एग्जांपल लिया वो सही है. अब ताला तो लगाना ज़रूरी है. ऑफ कोर्स इफ यू डोंट हैव अ पेटेंट डजंट मीन दैट यू डिस्क्वालीफाई. But of course, it is recommended, and we will always suggest that boss go for it. Right? There is no point you should avoid it. There is no point. There is no logical reasoning behind why you should not be doing it. If there is a lock which can safeguard your future, your all the hard work that you have done in past years, I mean, for the sake of few lakhs, doesn't make sense that you skip that process. It's always recommended.
एक चीज़ मैं ऐड करूँगा कि इट इज़ हैविंग ए कॉन्वर्सेशन. कई बार फाउंडर्स बोलते हैं अरे इंडिया में तो कॉपी हो जाएगा, क्या फ़ायदा पेटेंट करा के. तो मेरा हमेशा आर्ग्यूमेंट होता है कि आप सुबह घर जब आते हो ऑफिस से खुला छोड़ के आते हो कि अरे चोरी तो हो ही जाएगी. भाई जिसको चोरी करनी है वो करेगा, लेकिन आप तो लॉक लगा के जाओगे. दैट इज़ योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, राइट? दैट यू आर टेलिंग द वर्ल्ड दैट हे दिस इज माई प्रॉपर्टी.
एंड दीज पेटेंट्स आर लोकलाइज्ड, तो इंडिया में अलग अप्लाई कर.
इंडिया में अलग है, यूएस में अलग है. जोग्राफिकली आपको अलग अलग जाना पड़ेगा. और कई बार ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा कॉन्वर्सेशन होता है जहाँ पे फाउंडर्स को ये ज्ञान दिया जाता है कि नहीं आप इन कंट्रीज में जाइए, इन कंट्रीज में जाइए, लेकिन उनके बिजनेस स्ट्रैटेजी में कहीं प्लान ही नहीं है. तो इन्वेस्टर को क्या बोलते हैं कि हमने यहाँ पे पेटेंट फाइल किया. इन्वेस्टर पूछेगा भाई आप बिजनेस करने कब जा रहे हो, तो बोलेगा नहीं वो तो मेरे लॉयर ने बोला कि ऐसा करवा लीजिए. तो दैट ऑल्सो शुड नॉट बी द केस. आपको एज अ बिजनेस फाउंडर ये क्लियर हो कि भाई ये मेरे बिजनेस प्लान में फिट होता है अगले 5 साल में, 6 साल में, कि मुझे यूएस जाना है या मुझे यूएस इन्वेस्टर से पैसे लेने हैं या मुझे यूरोप जाना है, मेरा मार्केट वहाँ पे है. तो पेटेंट और आईपी का जो डायरेक्ट कोरिलेशन है आपके मार्केट एक्सेस से भी है कि आप जहाँ जा रहे हो उन्हीं कंट्रीज में आप अपना आइडिया प्रोटेक्ट करोगे. जहाँ मुझे जाना ही नहीं है वहाँ मैं क्यों पैसे लगाऊंगा. और कई बार ये गलतियाँ बहुत कॉमन होती है क्योंकि इट्स समटाइम्स स्पेशली व्हेन यू आर गोइंग आउटसाइड इंडिया, यूएस, यूरोप, इट गेट्स एक्सपेंसिव. और बहुत सारे फाउंडर्स आई हैव सीन वो अपना बहुत सारा जो कैपिटल है उसमें इन्वेस्ट करते हैं रादर देन दे शुड बी यूजिंग इन फॉर द मोर इनोवेशन.
तो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट निकल के आया. फिर तो मैं इंडिया में आई एम अ को फाउंडर और आई हैव रजिस्टर्ड माई पेटेंट हियर. यूएस में नहीं कराया मैंने, बट देन समबडी इन यूएस कैन कॉपी इट. हाउ डज देन द लॉ वर्क?
एब्सोल्युटली. सो देखो एंड ऑफ द डे द वे आपको समझना है आईपीआर एग्जिस्ट क्यों करता है. आईपीआर एग्जिस्ट करने का जो एक बेसिक फंडामेंटल रीज़न है वो ये है कि सोसाइटी और द गवर्नमेंट वांट टू इंसेंटिवाइज यू फॉर योर डिस्क्लोजर. कि आपने दुनिया को बताया देखो यार ये ऐसे करते हैं, और उसके बदले आपको एक हम राइट दे रहे हैं कि भाई ठीक है आप दूसरों को मना कर सकते हो ये यूज़ करने के लिए, लेकिन उसके लिए जो आप बना रहे हो वो एब्सोल्युटली न्यू होना चाहिए कि आपने दुनिया को बताया ही नहीं है, आप उससे पहले आप जाके प्रोटेक्शन ले रहे हो. तो अगर आप यूएस में ऑलरेडी कोई चीज़ है, इंडिया में इनफैक्ट आप लेके आओ आराम से, जो भी यूएस पेटेंट में टेक्नोलॉजी है और इंडिया में पेटेंटेबल नहीं है, आप बिल्कुल इंडिया में करिए, कोई मना नहीं है. ऐसे ही सेम यूएस वाले के लिए है कि भाई अगर आपने इंडिया में कोई पेटेंट कराया और यूएस में आपने नहीं कराया तो उसके लिए तो फिर ओपन टेरिटरी है ना. तो दैट्स द वे टू हैंडल दिस एंड लुक एट दिस लॉजिक. लेकिन अगर वो आपका मार्केट ही नहीं है और ना आपने कभी सोचा कि मुझे वहाँ जाना है, तो अगर कोई कॉपी कर रहा है तो जाने दो. हम उसमें क्यों जिए कि वो कॉपी कर लिया. आप पहले अपना मार्केट तो कॉन्कर करो.
सो दैट मीन्स बायोटेक्नोलॉजी या केमिस्ट्री में कुछ भी अगर हो रहा है तो दैट हैज टू बी ग्लोबल पेटेंट, अदरवाइज इट वोंट वर्क. हाँ,
सो देखो ग्लोबल पेटेंट कुछ नहीं होता, हमेशा आपको इंडिविजुअल कंट्रीज ही जाना होता है. अब जैसे फार्मा कंपनीज हैं वो प्लैनेट के हर कंट्री में जहाँ जहाँ पेटेंट है या जहाँ पे बिल्कुल है वहाँ पे कराते हैं पेटेंट. क्यों? क्योंकि उनका जो ड्रग मॉलिक्यूल है वो उनको प्रोटेक्ट करना है, उनका वो बिजनेस ही वही है. पेटेंट इज़ व्हाट प्रोटेक्ट्स देम कि कोई कॉपी नहीं करेगा. लेकिन अगर आपका बिजनेस ऐसा है जो आपको लगता है कि अगले 10 साल तक इंडिया में ही होने वाला है या सिर्फ इंडिया और यूएस में होने वाला है, तो आपके लिए एक अच्छी स्ट्रैटेजी है कि आप यूएस और इंडिया में ही करें. ऑफ कोर्स एक एज ए ह्यूमन हम हमेशा एक दरवाज़ा खुला रखने की कोशिश करते हैं. उसके कुछ मैकेनिज्म्स होते हैं जो देखे जा सकते हैं, बट लॉजिकल टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन इज हाँ, पेटेंट एक टेरिटोरियल राइट है. जहाँ पे आपका पेटेंट है आप उसी जगह पे आप किसी को मना कर सकते हो. और एक ग्लोबल डिस्क्लोजर है, इट हैज़ टू बी एब्सोल्युटली न्यू. दैट्स अ बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ अ पेटेंट. अगर आपने कुछ ऐसा किया जो आपने भी कहीं से कॉपी किया तो आपको पेटेंट आइडियली नहीं मिलना चाहिए,
इवन इफ इट इज रजिस्टर्ड इन समवेयर.
इवन इफ इट इज रजिस्टर्ड समवेयर. क्योंकि सबसे पहला क्राइटेरिया पेटेंट को मिलने का ये होता है कि इट हैज़ टू बी एब्सोल्युटली नॉवेल. इवन इफ आपको भी रिसर्च पेपर खुद का भी पब्लिश नहीं होना चाहिए. इसीलिए हमेशा कहते हैं कि रिसर्च से पहले पेटेंट करा लो, फाइल कर लो पब्लिकेशन से पहले, क्योंकि इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू मेक श्योर कि आप उसको पहले रजिस्टर कर रहे हैं. तो दैट इज़ हाउ इट वर्क्स.
ठीक है, सो लेट्स कम बैक टू लिटिल एक्सेलरेशन नाउ कि मेरे को आईपी हेल्प मिल गया, मैं एक फाउंडर हूँ. मैं आपके संग कुछ इवेंट्स में भी गया था, डीप टेक यात्रा जो थी, तो मुझे थोड़ा इकोसिस्टम भी थोड़ा डिफरेंट सा लगा इन टर्म्स ऑफ जो एक जनरल सक्सेस मैट्रिक्स होने चाहिए एक स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम में, डीप टेक में वो नहीं हो सकते. तो डीप टेक के एक्सेलरेशन में क्या सक्सेस मैट्रिक्स डिफाइंड होने चाहिए आपके हिसाब से?
उससे पहले मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है.
हाँ.
Did you find any personality difference between a deep tech founder and the rest of the founders that you have seen?
जो मैं पहले
What was that?
There was no, I mean, there was no fear as such in terms of, I would say, seriousness. They were very committed founders to what they were doing. I think you might have built a cohort that way, but जितने लोगों से डिफरेंस, हैदराबाद में हम गए, बैंगलोर में हम गए, चेन्नई में हम गए, तो आई शुड नॉट यूज दैट वर्ड ब्रीड, बट जो जॉनर था उस को फाउंडर कम्युनिटी का वो बहुत डिफरेंट था. मतलब उससे बात करके आपको लगेगा कि यार ये है, मतलब दिस इज रियल इंडिया, दिस इज रियल भारत फाउंडर.
And I tell you one more thing, because जो मैंने शुरू में आपको बोला था कि the people who are building such companies and technologies are the ones who come with years and years of core experience and time invested in those domains. So you'll see that most of these people are researchers, PhD scholars, who have spent decades within labs. Eventually, whether by virtue of the research or by virtue of their initial personality, they become a researcher. But these are people who are very focused on what they are building. You will find a lot of time that the founders are not that vocal about it, because these are not people who will be coming on podcasts and social media and all that. They will be there, but not that camera friendly people. These people are very straightforward. मेरे को मेरे काम में इंटरेस्ट है and I am meant for that. Right? So that's one part. You will see that in our meetups, a large part of founders are from that kind of nature, I would call it.
True.
The other piece, coming back to your question, when you are building the product itself for a decade, तो आपके सक्सेस माइलस्टोन बड़े अलग होते हैं. अनलाइक एनी अदर कंपनी जहाँ पर आप सबसे पहले सोचते हो कि पहला कस्टमर कब मिला, अरे 0 to 1 कब हुए, और 1 के बाद में 10 कब हुए, और 10 के बाद में 100 कब हुए. राइट, यहाँ पर वो माइलस्टोन्स काम नहीं करते. यहाँ पर नंबर वन, द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज विच आई थिंक, विच आई एम श्योर एवरी फाउंडर इन डीप टेक would be facing, is to keep themselves there in terms of motivation and all, because because your happy moments are not related to business. Your happy moments are related to milestones of the product, the technology journey. Ki you thought that you will reach that particular level in 6 months or 6 years. You did it a year before, so you saved on a year's time, right? You thought that this will give this kind of results. Oh my God, this is better than that. So the happy moments of a founder are very different here. Plus milestones जो होते हैं वो बहुत अलग तरीके से define करने होते हैं, and that's how, and that's why today every VC, most of the VCs are well educated about making investments in deep tech, but earlier a lot of VCs literally struggled to evaluate deep tech because of that. 7 years this guy is building, there is no signs of revenue, why should I fund it, कब तक ये ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा. So those stories were very difficult to bite for a lot of VCs. So within labs you define your milestones, and these are largely related to technology and product.
In fact, मेरा next question वही मैंने conceptualize किया था, but then I realized it's an oxymoron statement that what investors look beyond revenue. यार revenue तो होता ही नहीं deep tech में. तो investor, you're right. I mean, I still feel they still struggle. The VC still struggle, at least Indian landscape, कि इसको evaluate करना कैसे है. But फिर भी जैसे आप, if you are evaluating a startup from an investment perspective, what are you evaluating? आप क्या देख रहे हो? Of course, the team is there, but revenue नहीं आना, market size ठीक है, guess कर सकते हैं. तो what are those factors that an investor evaluates in a deep tech startup?
I think one lens which we prefer to always take is how far is this dream away from the commercial reality, right? You being a researcher, you can always think of a dream of something which can do some wonderful job, right? But will there be anyone who will be ready to pay for that job? Is my way of looking at it, right? But that too comes later. But before that, you know first whether this guy will reach that dream or not is a separate level of conviction, which is backed by the kind of people who are trying to see that dream. And then the kind of milestone, whether those milestones that they are considering are realistic or not. If somebody tells me that I will create a stair from Earth to Moon in next 6 years, it's a absurd thing to happen. Somebody telling me 30 years down the line it may happen, then there is a substance in it. So that's how that's how we, again, being a deep tech VC, that's why it's not an easy job.
True.
So ये lenses सबके अलग अलग होते हैं, but we try to see, try to balance both the side, whether this will ever become viable or whether this will become a reality. But दोनों के bases अलग अलग होते हैं.
I think one thing, very small point, that if you look at deep tech VCs who are truly doing a lot of business in the VC ecosystem, either have one of the founder coming from a research background or very strong technical engineering team also who understands these technologies really well, not only business analyst. Right? I think most of the funds that we have seen, a lot of them have engineering or at least have some ecosystems which can help them to evaluate a technology to a level that yes, and sometimes they also come to us and say, hey, how good is the IP? So I'm just saying that because their evaluation is also a little technical in nature, कि वो technically feasible है भी कि नहीं है. And I think one parameter is इसमें science risk है, technology risk है. What VCs are looking at, and in fact ये एक बहुत interesting deep tech startups के लिए जो बहुत important parameter होता है जब VCs करते हैं कि they don't want science risk, कि यार ये तो possible ही नहीं है. So there is a certain thing which is science research which is happening in universities, and then there is a technical risk कि हाँ ये फॉर्मूला काम करता है, टेक्निकल रिस्क ये है कि क्या इतने स्केल पे काम करेगा कि नहीं, लेकिन साइंस रिस्क नहीं है कि ये तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. तो इट इज डिफाइन द लॉ ऑफ लेट्स से रिलेटिविटी. सो वो दे डोंट वांट टू इन्वेस्ट इन दैट मनी. टेक्नोलॉजिकल रिस्क दे कैन टेक अप. सो अगर फाउंडर को लगता है कि मैंने वो साइंस रिस्क का हर्डल पार कर लिया है, then they should be thinking about how to build a business around it, and technology risk लिया जा सकता है.
तो वन क्वेश्चन जो आप दोनों ने बात बोली, इनफैक्ट आई वाज आस्क्ड दिस क्वेश्चन इन वन ऑफ द इवेंट्स कि कहाँ इन्वेस्ट नहीं करोगे, 3 चीज़ें आप बताओ जहाँ पे इन्वेस्ट नहीं करोगे. तो मेरा पहला मोड था कि मैं किसी सिंगल फाउंडर में कभी इन्वेस्ट नहीं करूँगा. तो आई थिंक वॉट एवर वी आर स्पीकिंग नाउ इन टर्म्स ऑफ रिसर्चर्स एंड स्कॉलर्स, इवन फ्रॉम डीप टेक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, सोलो फाउंडर्स वोंट वर्क. Is that true? Is that false? What's your view on that? Deep tech companies can't be a sole founder companies.
I won't say that. Yes, I'll call it a yes and a no. Right? It's always better to have, in fact, better to have multiple founders, because one person to have all the traits of being a salesperson, of being somebody who understands the finance, of somebody who understands building that whole tech vision, is almost impossible to have, right? There might be, there could be cases where somebody carries predominantly 2 of the traits, but where's the third one? So you can always, not that every time you have to get a founder, but sometimes people end up getting senior leaders at the right point to fill that gap. So saying that a company which is having a single founder should not be invested, I think I'm totally averse to that idea. That's, in my opinion, that's not right. There would be that, but that will be an exception. Right?
I think the anecdote I keep giving it कि यार एक बच्चे के माँ और बाप 2 होंगे तो अच्छा रेज होगा, एक डेटा पॉइंट है. बट ऐसा नहीं है कि अगर सिंगल फादर सिंगल मदर है तो उसका बच्चा अच्छा नहीं निकलेगा. आई थिंक दैट्स हाउ वी हैव टू लुक एट दैट. यस, इन अ रियल वर्ल्ड, इफ यू लुक एट कि अगर एक बच्चे का माँ है, बाप है, पूरा एक जॉइंट फैमिली में, तो उसका एक अपब्रिंगिंग, उसके सक्सेस के चांसेस बहुत ज़्यादा होंगे एज कम्पेयर टू अ पर्सन हु इज़ लाइक हु हैज़ अ सिंगल मदर और सिंगल फादर. तो आई थिंक ये बड़ा, अगर देखा जाए तो उसी से रिलेट होता है कि हाँ, मतलब उसमें बहुत सारे इफ्स एंड बट्स होते हैं. आई हैव सीन फाउंडर्स who are single founders, amazingly great, amazingly talented, and they can pull off anything. I have seen those portfolios in our company, and then we have seen 2 or 3 founders who are doing amazing work, and some of them also not doing so great because their founder did not have the chemistry. So I think ये बड़ा subjective है. बट हाँ, मतलब अगर आप डेटा पॉइंट में देखोगे, अगर आप प्योर मैथ्स की बात करें जो हमने शुरू किया था, प्योर मैथ्स इज ऑफ कोर्स is not in favor of single founders. That's also true.
Why I brought this question was in the 10-11 episodes we've done, I asked this question to almost all founders, especially those who are serial founders. तो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एनेक्डोट निकल के आया कि जो मल्टी फाउंडर कंपनी चला चुका, वो ये बोल रहा है कि नहीं यार मेरे को खुद ही करना है, और जो खुद चला रहा है वो बोल रहा है नहीं यार एक बंदा और होता है ना तो ज़्यादा मज़ा आता. तो आई थिंक बोथ साइड ऑफ स्टोरीज आर ट्रू, बट my thought process is after I meet these researchers, they are not people who are good at commercially making the product viable. So either they can do research or they can make the product commercially viable. So the successful ones that at least I have seen is one person doing research and the other making it a business product in the market.
But I think somehow you have to also look at, as humans now, we acquire skills. I have seen one founder in my portfolio who is a PhD. Of course, he has other co-founders, but I have seen that as a researcher, he has an amazing understanding of business, and he has acquired the skills. A lot of people in the who have invested in his company have told me that he has evolved over the period. So I think as long as the metric can be, are you coachable? Are you open to learn? Are you able to unlearn and learn new things? I think that's a bigger skill than anything. So if there is a researcher who is willing to learn and willing to say that yes, I'm okay to be wrong, I think that's a great skill to have.
So let's move ahead in terms of a founder who's done the IP, acceleration part भी हो गया. एक इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ जो मैं देखता हूँ स्टार्टअप इवेंट्स में, स्पेशली अर्ली स्टेज, is deep tech founders roaming around in early stage events and introducing themselves as deep tech founders. And not once, I would say at least 20-30 times I have redirected, why don't you go and talk to Sanchi accelerators like Sanchi Connect? And they're lost, right? They're trying to find answers, but they don't know they are not in the right ecosystem. So why is that? Is that a knowledge gap, or is it like वो founder को पता ही नहीं कि वो कर क्या रहा है, इसलिए वो उस ecosystem में घूम रहा है? So what is your point of view on that front? It is like that's a founder who is unaware of what he is doing, or is it ecosystem is not making a noise or where it should be, where he or she should be right now?
I think it's a common problem with the founders. I mean, I won't I won't judge the deep tech founders solely on this, but I think, and that's my personal opinion, that a lot of startups does not get funded. That's because founders tend to spend more time in talking to the VCs rather than researching about them. Right? Every VC is not meant for every business, which a lot of founders don't understand. Not that this is something which is coming from the heaven, but that's truth, right? And I keep on telling this to every founder, that at least the first time founders that I come across, your 90% time should go in researching and doing some detailed work in understanding who are the VCs who could be of interest for my business, right? And those VCs who have shown patterns to invest in ideas like mine, right? And your 10% time only should go in talking to the relevant ones. Unfortunately, the reverse happens. 90% of the time in all the events that you are talking about, you'll see founders trying to force their stories to the VCs.
True.
Right? And end up having less than 10% of those conversational follow-up meetings with them. That's precisely when you try to take the wrong shot.
And I think just to say that it's skill and the system gap here. थोड़ा सा स्किल का ही प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि वो रिसर्चर है, उसे शायद पीपल स्किल थोड़ी सीखनी चाहिए. और कहीं ना कहीं उसका एक सिस्टम नहीं है, जैसे सुनील ने बोला कि एक सिस्टम होना चाहिए कि आप कैसे रिसर्च कर रहे हो, कैसे आपको पता हो कि किस इवेंट में जाना है, किस में नहीं जाना है. सो एक सिस्टम का भी कहीं ना कहीं गैप होता है. तो कहीं ना कहीं उस नेटवर्किंग या उस चीज़ों को करने के लिए वो एक थोड़ा सा सिस्टम बनाना चाहिए. एंड आई हैव सीन सो मेनी डीप टेक फाउंडर्स पिचिंग, एंड ट्रस्ट मी इट समटाइम्स इज़ वेरी हार्ड टू इवन अंडरस्टैंड कि वो कर क्या रहे हैं. तो कहीं ना कहीं वो शायद कहीं ना कहीं स्किल गैप में भी है. और ये देखो सिस्टम इकोसिस्टम डीप टेक का अभी भी नया है. एंड आई थिंक हम शायद सारा कुछ ब्लेम फाउंडर पे भी नहीं दे सकते, क्योंकि ये इस इकोसिस्टम भी इवॉल्व हो रहा है. हमने 2-3 सालों का जो भी नॉलेज था, वी हैव ट्राई टू कवर, व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड टू बुक, द आइडिया टू राइट दिस बुक वाज ओनली टू डू दैट, कि ये जो नॉलेज गैप है ये कैसे फिल किया जाए. तो आई थिंक दैट इज़ वेयर वी हैव ऑल्सो बिल्ड दिस, कि कैसे आप ये ढूंढो कि कहाँ जाना चाहिए, कैसे बात करना चाहिए. सो आई थिंक ये शायद नॉलेज गैप है. एंड दैट्स वेयर वी बिलीव कि हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, इंक्लूडिंग यू, कि ये एजुकेशन लेके जाएं उनके पास, कि देखो अगर आप रिसर्च और आप स्टार्टअप करना चाहते हो तो डीप टेक का क्या तरीका है या कैसे किया जाए. सो आई थिंक दैट्स द होल इंटेंट of doing this.
Interesting. So if you want to deep dive into deep tech, Moonshot in Marathons is your book. Please do have a read. And I feel both of you, in fact, Chirag is also open to feedbacks. So please do that. So let's just twist the topic for a while. तो आपको लगता है फाउंडर्स पेटेंट वाले फॉर्म से ज़्यादा डरते हैं या अभी भी इनकम टैक्स नोटिस से ज़्यादा डरते हैं?
आई थिंक इनकम टैक्स से हमेशा सब डरते हैं. आजकल वैसे ही नोटिस बहुत ज़्यादा आ रही है, पता नहीं क्यों, हमारा बहुत एक्टिव है. आई थिंक एक अगेन ये बहुत बड़ा गैप है, शायद हमारी इंडस्ट्री में भी रहा है, कि जब भी आप किसी पेटेंट वाले के पास जाओगे वो बोलेगा भाई ये 10 फॉर्म भर के दे दो. आई थिंक कहीं ना कहीं वो डर होता है. और इंजीनियर्स आर बाय डिफॉल्ट आर लेजी पीपल. आई एम इंजीनियर बीइंग, आई कैन टेल यू, लिखना बड़ा मुश्किल वाला काम है. सो कई बार वो फॉर्म से भी डर होता है. बट हाँ, अभी तो इनकम ही नहीं है, इनकम टैक्स से कैसे डरेंगे. बट अभी इनकम में आना है, टाइम लगेगा. बट आई वुड से कि हाँ, कहीं ना कहीं एक मेंटल ब्लॉक होता है कि अरे पेटेंट में बहुत टाइम लगता है, बहुत डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होता है. बट ऐसा है नहीं. सो आई वुड से हाँ, लोग अभी शायद डीप टेक में अभी शायद पेटेंट फॉर्म से ज़्यादा डरते हैं rather than income tax notice. So that would be my view on this.
So Sunil, you're also running programs for accounting softwares like Tally. तो फाउंडर आके जब कोई कंप्लायंस का वर्ड यूज़ करता है या एनी इकोसिस्टम प्लेयर दैट यूजेस द वर्ड कंप्लायंस या फेयर ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस, तो इट इज़ मोर टुवर्ड्स फाइंडिंग कि भाई जुगाड़ कैसे होगा सॉल्व करने के लिए, और यू फील नहीं यार कंप्लायंस का बहुत बड़ा गैप है, चाहे कोई सा भी इकोसिस्टम हो, डीप टेक कोई अलग नहीं है उस केस में.
So I tell you what, we have in our organization we have a vertical which is the program management side, and that's where we work with some of the reputed larger organization corporates which have been there for a long time, and they are trying to impact and support startups. Tally engagement is one of those. With the Tally Startup Collective, we are going to smaller town. Again, the idea was always like that, you have startups which are emerging in smaller towns, and then you have the whole ecosystem sitting somewhere else. With Tally, I think I'm glad we were we were able to convince the management that it's a great initiative if you can take somebody, get the ecosystem from Bangalore's and Mumbai's of the world to the smaller town. It will give Tally also a visibility and an opportunity and a platform to connect with the founders. Yes, a lot of time compliance and related questions, accounting related questions comes in, but thankfully we always have Tally people with us to answer those questions.
But I'll add one thing here, that what I would definitely say that, and it's my reflection also as a founder. When I started, as I said, I was not involved in my father's business, so I never understood numbers and accounts and books and all that. I can tell you that it's very, very important to work and have your books very clean and work with professionals who can do good accounts and books, because when deep tech investing happens, these are the things which delays things. Deep tech sometimes dies with this delays, right? And having founder understanding of these basics of finance, keeping their books and doing the compliance is very, very important. I think compliance has to be also on their priorities, doing their books, doing their regular. I have seen founders who have not even deducted TDS on our invoices sometimes. Of course, we tell them, TDS तो काट लो सर, मतलब आपको काटना है, क्योंकि बाद में आपके compliance में issues आएंगे. And I feel that compliance in the startup, even if you're an early stage and you have just picked up a grant or very small, paying salaries and things like that, it's very, very important to have a proper, systems around your accounting or understanding. And founder must understand basics. कि book, balance sheet, profit and loss, at least basics तो पता होने चाहिए. Because I have seen them, I was speaking to a founder कि यार अच्छा, आपका books में कितना है, what's your target like and all those things, random numbers, and that you lose, the VCs lose confidence in the founder because they are not done with their numbers. They are not clear कितना burn है. When they ask कि अरे burn कितना है, ठीक है technical term है, but at least पता तो हो कि भाई मेरे profit and loss books में चल क्या रहा है. So I think that is also something I want to add here, that what you do, looking at with very startup centric, I think there's a need of the hour for the deep tech, and accounting does not discriminate between deep tech or D2C. Of course, the nuances can be smaller there, but I think accounting is very, very essential, or compliance with these, law of the lands is very, very essential, especially when you're raising grants also, because these things will also come in your compliance books and kind of submissions. So I think that's also I would add here, that sometimes founders ये भूल जाते हैं कि अरे accounting भी तो करनी है, research करो, but ये सब भी ज़रूरी है.
I tell you, one thing I want to bring up, when this just happened, we were doing a similar kind of roadshow with Tally in Lucknow, and there one of the very senior management person was there from Tally, beyond the startup team. He took a very interesting comparison. And he said, in the audience we had some 40-50 founders sitting and all that. He said, यार ये business आपका baby है, right? बच्चा जब परेशान होता है तो वो react करता है, रोता है. आपके business का जो expression है ना, वो आपकी books हैं.
Books हैं, so true.
Right. So you need to be very sure that your books are clean. If your books are not clean, your business, and that's where you need to have a clear visibility of your accounting related जो भी आपकी compliance sheets होती है.
Perfect anecdote कि it's like a baby showing your emotion. So अगर वो emotionless है तो there is nothing that exists. Have you ever seen a case, in fact, to both of you, where we've seen a lot of cases where DDs have resulted in the term sheet getting cancelled? In deep tech space, something has not gone right in DDs and investors have said no, maybe from patent side or maybe from some other things. What should the founder be aware of, and what have been those cases where investors have said no?
And that was the very first accelerator we did 3 years back, and this is a company which was incubated by an IIT. The founders, fantastic company in mobility space, from Maharashtra, and the founders have, great team. You can't think of a better team than the combination we saw there. Having some POs in hand, DD में निकल के आता है that the company took loan. This was categorized as loan. Yes, the company took loan from one of the shareholder 4 years back, right? And which I think in the laws, in the books of laws, you can't take.
You have to follow all the nuances and then take it. Huh?
We took that case to multiple, accounting firms, CAs, very senior folks, and we realized that there's no other way to. There's no way, because all the review tenure had also passed, so you can't correct that thing. The only way to correct it is get some jugaad, that we as as an accelerator, we could not take that risk, right? So, and that was a very basic thing for any business to, when you are starting up, you are always being helped by people around you.
So true.
Also, it just happened. One of the friend who invested in them, later on gave them some loan, but it was not represented rightly on the books. And literally, in the DD, we had to write off. Later on, I think a few months back only, I got to know that company has to wind up. that led to a lot of situations between the founders that some we don't need to talk about that, but some very basic things which nobody cares about, leading to a complete shutdown of a company.
I think since he has given a finance, I'll give you an example of an IP.
I think that's
So what happened in one of the startup was that the IP was not assigned to the founder. It was assigned to the institute. They had no rights on those IPs. It only delayed things, and there was no agreement between co-founders or they did not own the brand. Also, sometimes they had a name which was under opposition. So all those basic mistakes, and especially the ownership, because when a founder is getting money from a VC, वो सबसे पहले देखेगा भाई आप जो क्लेम कर रहे हो वो आपका है भी कि नहीं है, एंड अगर वो पेपर वर्क पूरा नहीं है और आपके पास वो आईपी राइट्स ही नहीं है जो आप क्लेम कर रहे हो कि ये तो टेक्नोलॉजी मेरा है, लेकिन वो आपका है ही नहीं, वो तो इंस्टीट्यूट में जहाँ आप बैठे थे उसके एग्रीमेंट में लिखा है कि भाई वो आप नहीं यूज़ कर सकते हो या यूज़ करना है तो देयर इज सम क्लॉज अराउंड इट, तो वो चीज़ें क्लियर ही नहीं थी. So we have seen a lot of delays, and of course then you get around it. Of course institute does not want that startup to die, but it just delays the process. और कई बार फाउंडर बड़े स्मार्टली ये करते हैं कि मैं अपने नाम पे फाइल करता हूँ, सस्ता पड़ेगा, ये होगा. Those things eventually delay everything. So वो having a proper trail of IP, paperwork and also ownership is very very critical.
So जितना हमने डिबेट किया अब तक, do you feel then most founders should not be building in deep tech? If yes, do you agree with this statement? What are the reasons? If you disagree, what are the reasons?
You should not be building into it if you don't have if you're not confident about the domain, your understanding, and there has to be a conviction to reach there, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So unless you don't have that conviction within you that you can stay connected to an idea, and you'll be happy with those small milestones rather than looking at the books, the company's accounting books. So unless you're not you're good with that, you can venture into it. Otherwise, I would suggest you better, if you really want to become an entrepreneur, go for a easier option, which could be where the visibility to cash is far closer than what we end up seeing in deep tech.
If you have the ability कि 10 मिनट में आपको ऑर्डर आना था लेकिन वो शायद 10 घंटे नहीं आया, and you are still patient, and if you're that character, then probably deep tech is right for you, because इसमें 10 मिनट में शायद कुछ होगा नहीं. मतलब like Sunil said, it's not immediate gratification. The stories that we see कि अरे उस फाउंडर ने इतना बड़ा एग्जिट ले लिया, बहुत जल्दी नहीं हो भी सकता है. आई डोंट वांट टू साउंड सिनिकल, बट कम विद दैट माइंडसेट दैट इट्स अ लॉन्ग गेम, इट्स अ लॉन्ग जर्नी ऑफ डेवलपमेंट, एडैप्शन, टेस्टिंग, फेलिंग, technology change, a lot of things can happen. So it could be called a dangerous sport sometimes, right? But are you wired to be patient? And if you are wired to be patient, I think this is definitely for you. India needs it. Government wants it, because India needs more technology. India needs more technology sovereignty in that ways, and this is required for sure. But should you do it or not? ये थोड़ा पर्सनल कॉल है. एंड अगर आपको लगता है कि हाँ मुझे कुछ आता है, मैं कुछ कर सकता हूँ, मुझे टेक्नोलॉजी में इंटरेस्ट है, तो डेफिनेटली करना चाहिए. आई डोंट वांट टू बी साउंड सिनिकल, बिकॉज हमें एक्चुअली में एज अ नेशन वी नीड दिस. डीप टेक इंडिया को चाहिए, बट अगर हर कोई सोचेगा अरे तो बहुत मुश्किल है, नहीं करेंगे, तो फिर ऐसे तो दुनिया नहीं चलेगी. सो आई डू फील कि यू शुड डू इट, बिकॉज देयर इज एन अपॉर्चुनिटी, देयर इज एन ओशन ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज with the RDI funds and a lot of things coming in.
One challenge or one learning I had from these deep tech founders in our portfolio was, if you're building for exit, that's the first red flag on its own. And another thing is, unlike other startup ecosystem, you get highly diluted by the time you become commercially viable. Is that true? And if it is, what are the pros and cons for such a founder? What are they thinking? Should they be okay with these extreme dilutions happening by the time product becomes commercially viable?
It's all a matter of industry benchmark. Now, understand if somebody is building a product before even getting the first customer check. If it is taking 10 years, then you have to sustain your business for 10 years.
So,
Grants and all, how long will you survive on that, right? So you have to continuously raise capital, and raising capital means you're giving something for the company, which is your equity. So it's very well accepted that if you're building something which is so novel, it is going to take resources, capital, and that will come at a cost of the equity, which that's the only thing the founder have at that stage to give away, right? So it's accepted that so if you benchmark a deep tech startup versus a SaaS or a D2C startup, these are not the right comparisons.
Look at space tech for that matter, right? The amount of weight and patience that they need to have to get to probably become a $1 billion company is going to be long, and dilution is probably the only way that you can do it. Like how long you will survive on grants, like Sunil said, and in a country like us where there are so many people and so less taxpayers, or there is limited, like you want to give it to at max a lot of people, so sometimes the grant quantum may not be enough to sustain you for a long time, and especially the kind of technology that you are building in. I think it's fairly okay to dilute, right?
So my examples were coming from a space tech company only who built these engines. Right? The engines are ready, but founders are done. They're ready to sell it, but now there is nothing left. There is the marquee investor left. Similarly, in automobile segment, we had a marquee player, built it for 8-9 years. But again, a big corporate has already come in the first year. They only took the product to the market, but the founders are ultimately on the sidelines rather than product making marketable. So the question is again, then you have to be detached from the day one, that by the time this product goes out, this is not yours to say. Is that a very common balance in this deep tech ecosystem? You can be the face, but you might not be the owner.
And you should be asking this question to the early stage investor. Did they enjoy that? The answer is yes.
In terms of sector specific in deep tech, what are your favorite sectors? Say space tech or AI or biotechnology. If you have to choose one in which India is doing great, which will be that one specific subsector of a deep tech? Right.
So, opportunity wise, there is no dearth of opportunity in any one of them. There is no doubt about it. But yeah, on a personal note, I really love the kind of work which is happening in space tech domain, especially in the last 5 years, 5 to 7 years. We have seen, the number of startups. Suddenly, we have become, I think, second or third largest space tech startup ecosystem in the world.
Okay.
While from nowhere. And the kind of work that we are doing, while to start with we were all seeing space tech as a vertical, but today space tech is kind of become a horizontal layer which is cutting through biopharma, manufacturing, research and all those things. So that's that way I think space tech is coming out to be the most evolved and interesting segment for me.
So for me, I think space tech is evolving, and if I look at a little bit of history, I think a lot of industry have been evolving. And from IP perspective, I would say that biotech, robotics, medical devices, which are solving, some of the energy for that matter. I believe that these are some of my favorite sector. I would say still energy, I feel it's going to be a very critical sector also. Looking at India needs and all those things, I feel energy as a broad, horizon is very interesting as a space in deep tech. In energy space, my next gut feeling is nuclear is going to be the big one in the future. Quantum, of course, on the AI side, it will cover once AI gets mature. Quantum will probably take over. But my gut feel is that like government has opened space as a sector, I think nuclear is probably going to be the next one, which will also become a very, very interesting sector in the coming years, because probably that's also one way to solve our energy problems as well, right? And I think once we get more mature as economy and more mature as ecosystem, I think it's going to be the next one. But current favorite would be energy, and robotics is my favorite right now.
So we are moving towards the last section, and I'll have some little difficult questions coming up. This is coming in from somebody who's worked at, say, a secretary level in the government, top-notch scientist. And he once told me about 7-8 years back that there is nothing impossible for a mankind, especially in India. What's lacking is ethics and intent, which becomes the bottleneck. So I'll come to government later. But what I've personally seen is the capitalism, where if you're creating something well and good, but don't replace us, because if you do, we are buying you out and we're throwing you in the dustbin. Do you think that's happening, where technology is solving for something, but then the capitalist doesn't allow that technology to come into the market because it's a loss for them?
I think I have a different view on this. I think the capitalist market is always looking for efficiency in business, which really makes them more and more profitable, which eventually leads to job loss at some extent. But I think that's how the humans have evolved always. New technologies will keep on coming. Some of those technologies will be replacement for human efforts. But at the same time, this should become the motivation of human to evolve themselves in terms of skills, capabilities, and all that. So I'm perfectly fine with this. I mean, if AI is, taking away some of the jobs, I think it has to happen. But people will have to see the other avenues of, getting themselves involved. And we have, I think the world is full of such examples.
So somehow, if I understand your question correctly, you are saying that if you are building a disruptive tech and some big company is going to be affected by it, you will just kill it. I think if you look at a lot of technologies for that matter, like oil for that matter, right? A lot of times there's a lot of documentaries that how oil companies have killed technologies and all those things, right? I believe that it's also the way I look at it is that it can stop for a moment or it can delay this, but it cannot stop, right? It can delay for sure. And I was listening to somebody and they were talking about for example, you are going to replace a boiler, let's say for that matter, with your technology. And the boiler which has been amortized for 25 years and there is a lot of money riding on it, definitely it's going to affect. So what smart way is to also find these nuances of economics. Why this capitalist would want to kill you and then find that how you can work with the system. Sometimes we become more idealistic to work against the system. I think we have to be part of this economic system, and probably AI for that matter, Sunil touched about it, because somebody somewhere in the capitalist world must have seen that it is going to create more jobs and more capital or more opportunities than it is losing now. So sometimes this has to be looked at very objectively than emotionally.
The market dynamics have always been like this. You better go with it, follow it, otherwise you will end up delaying your own.
I think again, I remember one of the conversation which your investor shown, that जब साइकिल आई थी तो there was this narrative कि साइकिल यूज करना खराब होता है क्योंकि उससे साइकिल फेस हो जाता है. Ladies should not ride cycle. It's a very interesting he shared. So if you look at history, there has been so many of these things कि घोड़े वालों ने गाड़ी को नहीं आने दिया, गाड़ी वालों ने plane को नहीं आने दिया. So there has been always these stories, but they have only probably like a small delay, but they could never shut it off.
Yeah, because twice it happened with me in some of these pitching sessions. The good startups, 4-5 years old, people asked them about exits, and the founder said, "मुझे पता है ये तो खरीद लेगा." I mean, it was like ये competitor है ये तो मुझे खरीद ही लेगा, and even if he kills, that's fine. It was like a little dilemma statement कि भाई पे बनाई क्यों रहा था, something of that sort. Now moving on the government side of the story, say from IP and from acceleration standpoint, what is it that government has done good? And is it actually an enabler today, or there's still bottlenecks that the government needs to solve?
No, there are. I mean, as I said, I'm a fan of the kind of work which has happened in the last 1 decade in this country in terms of nurturing the startup ecosystem. So the best work, the best thing that government has done is laying down the whole infrastructure in the name of incubation centers, riding on academics and campuses. Government has done a phenomenal job in terms of laying down the infrastructure. I understand there are challenges in terms of the utilization, efficiency, and all that, but it always happen like that. You lay down things and then adoption starts happening.
True.
And in fact, last week only I was talking to a very senior bureaucrat, and he was telling me the same thing. You know what? While we understand the utilization of the infrastructure capital investment that we have done is less, but we understand that this is going to increase as we move ahead, because now the focus will be, earlier it was to set up the infra, now the focus is to make it utilized, right? So I mean, it's a usual phenomena, right? You can't expect that I'm setting down something, I'm laying down something and it will achieve 100% efficiency on day one. That's not going to happen. You have to lay down things, wait for some cooling off, and then it starts picking up.
What's on the IP front?
So I think on the capacity building, definitely things have moved, and we have seen a lot of speed in terms of IP case resolutions and setting up IP courts, especially. India has seen 400% growth in IP litigation, which is a great in last 10 years. So a lot of people who question about कि इंडिया में IP का enforcement नहीं, ऐसा है नहीं. 400% increase हुआ है, specialized courts हैं who understand IP. So this is great step. On the building side, of course, some of these schemes like facilitator schemes and all that, I will always, as a service provider, I would say यार बहुत कम पैसा है, quality gets broken and all those things. But I would say from an infra to just start things, it's a good start. Now like Sunil said, now it's time to now start capitalizing, building on top of what we have done, because it cannot sustain forever. कब तक आप फ्री का ग्रांट्स या फ्री में आप आईपीज देखते रहोगे, उसको कमर्शलाइज तो करना पड़ेगा. एंड आई थिंक नाउ वी आर ऑल्सो सीइंग दैट NIRF रैंकिंग्स आर ऑल्सो गेटिंग मोर स्ट्रिंजेंट अबाउट यार आपने कमर्शलाइज कितना किया, ठीक है फाइलिंग आपने बहुत सारे कर लिए. सो आई थिंक दैट नाउ द क्वालिटी बार विल गेट हायर एंड हायर फ्रॉम हियर, विच वी होप सो, कि हमने वॉल्यूम अचीव कर लिया, अब चलो क्वालिटी पे आते हैं. एंड दैट्स इफ यू लुक एट ऑल द ग्रोथ ऑफ अदर इकोनॉमीज, I think that's how it starts, and I think we have to be okay with that. So yeah.
I think deep tech as a topic, I can sit with you guys for one more week and continue this, but we'll have to stop it. But I'll ask just one last question. What is your one takeaway or one outcome or one reflection from your experience in the deep tech ecosystem so far that you can give back to the community? Just one giveaway that you want to give.
So I would say that pick the right problem. India की need क्या है, localize करो और उसको solve करो. I think that's I would say my last cent on this.
Be patient. If you don't have the patience, don't be part of this.
Yeah. So combine both of us in that way. So
yeah, absolutely. So interesting insights. IP is more important than funding, I think, than in deep tech landscape. If you don't have patience, don't come in the deep tech ecosystem. And I believe network is all around for helping our deep tech founders. And you've known the authors of Moonshot and Marathons. Anything and everything around deep tech. If you want more information, do read the book, provide the review. And these are very grounded founders. Please reach out to them. And I assure you, you'll have the best of the reviews and the best of the feedbacks that you need in this ecosystem. Thank you for doing this, Dr. Sunil and Govind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sambhav, for having us.